Welcome back, my friends. I thought we'd spend a couple minutes today looking at and chatting about some records from my favorite band. It's obviously, we're talking about Led Zeppelin records today, but we're not talking about those up there. We want to talk about these down here. And so I've pulled these out. I've had them tucked away for a long time. I bought these when I was young at a little record store in Garland, Texas. And each one of these, when I bought it, was the only one of its kind that he had, and the only one of its kind he ever had. Luckily, he didn't have more than one at a time, or I would have never been able to get all of these. The most interesting thing about this first one, Led Zeppelin Going to California, is that this is actually a photograph glued or taped onto the cover. They didn't even print the image onto the cover. They sort of glued a photograph on. And this is pretty thin, kind of flimsy cardboard. On the back of it, we have the song list. And this itself is a sticker that's just stuck on there. And so we have Led Zeppelin Going to California. Sorry about the glare and the focus. But it shows side 1, 2, 3, and 4. Most interesting thing about this record is side 3 starts with Stairway to Heaven. And this is the only time I've ever heard Stairway to Heaven played live where the crowd is absolutely silent in the beginning. And for most of the song, most of the first half, the crowd is quiet. So interesting to hear. Because every live version of Stairway to Heaven I've ever heard, the crowd goes crazy within the first 2 or 3 notes. They know what they're about to hear. This one is uniquely special. Must be from the tour that they did just before the 4th album was released. But they were playing the songs live. Also interesting about this record is the fact that the 2 records in here look like normal records. Look like, they got labels on them, but they're completely blank. Has anyone seen anything like that ever before? Completely bizarre. I thought it was unique when I got it, and I just kept it, tucked it away, held on to it. And I still have it. I've never seen another example, and I would sure like to know if anyone else ever has, or what is the deal with this? How cool. Alright, so I'm going to pause this real quick. I'm going to put these records up before I start pulling out more and get them all mixed up. Alright, the second one we want to look at is Led Zeppelin's Listen to This, Eddie. And once again, like the previous one, this is an actual photograph glued on. It's actually glued on a little bit better than the first one, so I can't lift up a corner to show that it's a photograph. But it is. And the back, very similar. Has the sticker showing the song list, although this one does have the date and location. Come on, let's get the focus. Los Angeles Forum, June 1977. June 21st, 1977. So we have side 1, side 2, side 3. Side 3 contains 1 song, no quarter, how far out. And don't know, I've heard 10 Years Gone played live by Led Zeppelin too many times. Both of these have the same copyright 1984 box top records and an address. So let's take a look at what's inside this one. Now this one is packed extremely tight. Interesting. More interesting. And most interesting, apparently I got 6 sides, not 4. Each one of them says something. Is that Oz and a picture of a boxer? Looks like scribbles to me. And the flip side. A rare collection of vintage classics. Special surprise issue. What is that? Reform edition? Reformation? Crazy weird. And each one of these has the same thing on its flip side. Looks like normal legal writing. But at least they got the same color label on each side of each record. Who knows what is all about that? Alright, and we proceed. And we have Egg on Your Face, Zozo. This one I actually featured last night and played a good chunk of. And I'm kind of cognizant about not raising any red flags or anything sketchy. But we opened this up, played it, and as soon as I posted it, I got a copyright notice. And it was completely vague, and there was no actions because they could not identify what it was or where it was from. But the song was obvious. And so I got a notice from Atlantic Records saying it was their property, but they couldn't do anything about it. Interesting. Look at this. Dedicated to the memories of President John Kennedy and Senator Robert Kennedy. A king amongst men, Dr. Martin Luther King. What is that? And the same thing on the other label on the other side. But check out my other video because I played a good portion of this last night, and you're going to hear a version of Thank You from the second album that you've never heard before. With the organ, with the full organ intro. Is so cool. Something I've never heard before. And I thought I could just play it on a YouTube video because it was completely unconventional and not a known recording, but it still got flagged as recognizable, I guess. The other record in the set, Most Charming. Is that Winston Churchill? Joe Valino. And both of these. Interesting. And of course, this is from Montreux, Switzerland, 71. And it's Wonderful Productions, Canada, 1986. And yes, I did buy this in 1986. So it was just an oddity. And I wasn't even sure if I was getting ripped off or actually buying Led Zeppelin or not. But as soon as you play it, you know it's unmistakable what you're listening to. So cool. And I just tucked it away and held on to it. I would love to know if anyone else has ever seen another copy of this, anyone else has a copy, or if anyone knows anything about this copy. Interesting. And we're going to pause again and move on. All right, how about this? Bonzo's Last Stand, The Last Rehearsal, September 1980. Is that crazy or what? Recorded preparing for U.S. Tour 80-81, days before Bonzo died. Stereo. Wow. I suppose the story goes, as they're rehearsing in Jimmy Page's house, and of course Jimmy Page has a recording studio in his basement where they rehearse, and of course everything rehearsals are recorded. They're even recorded in stereo. And apparently, this is a copy of that. Now, this sleeve is obviously falling apart, but we can pull out the record inside. And look at this. Artemis Record Works, The Road Warriors. Barnum and Bailey's Last Tent Show. Black Winter, Orion Barbarian, Hell's First Kiss. Oh my word, don't you like how they renamed, referring to the songs actually? Sardonic Escalator. Stairway to Heaven, I guess. Orion Barbarian, that must be Kashmir. And the other would be Achilles' Last Stand. Interesting. So I wonder if this was really an actual recording of their last rehearsal. Interesting thing. I've seen only one, and here it is. Next up, we have Led Zeppelin 1972 interview. Straightforward, simple enough. With a lengthy explanation of why this interview is significant. And of course it says, some might think it strange that an interview recorded 15 years ago with two members of a group that no longer exists should be of interest to anyone. Well, yeah. First of all, the two members of the band that have been interviewed here is John Bonham and Robert Plant. Now, I had never heard John Bonham's speaking voice or an actual interview with John Bonham ever myself. And we are all familiar with the interviews of the wise old men reflecting on their days and their glory. The three surviving members have endlessly done interviews talking about Led Zeppelin. But to hear one actually done in 1972 at their young, cocky, kind of arrogant selves, so interesting. And even more interesting is the fact that it's a picture disc. How about that? Awesome. This one I could probably get away with playing for you. I think I could put that at the turntable and play that. I don't think that could get tagged as copyright infringement or violation. But we're going to move on. And we move on to Led Zeppelin Carnival, white vinyl. If this becomes boring to anyone, I understand, but it's probably an overdose of just too much cool stuff all at once. It gets confusing. So we got Live in London, 69-71. It looks like it has some legitimacy, although it's by Toasted Records. That doesn't sound too authentic. Printed in Australia. And if we look inside, we see pretty basic, pretty simple. Wow, it's cool. They're so old that the white paper has actually sort of faded over time, whereas the white vinyl did not. But at least they had 4 separate labels for the 4 sides. That's nicer than the one that was just completely blank. Interesting stuff. Wonder if anyone has any information on any of these. This is one I'm definitely very curious about. Led Zeppelin Sick Again, limited edition. Chicago Stadium, April 9th, 1977. Sorry, this one's got a dog bite out of it. Song remains the same, Sick Again, nobody's fault but mine. Since I've been loving you, 10 years gone, and down by the seaside. This is the complete show in which Jimmy Page gets sick from China White. The first 50 pressings on colorized vinyl with a booklet. But mine is not one of the first 50 pressings. That's got to be cool. I wonder if anyone has one of those first 50 pressings. But it's nice to see it's actually labeled Led Zeppelin. Nothing else. Oh, here we have side 1, side 2, 1986 P&E records. Promotional, not for sale. Well, how about that? Then I'm good, because I've never sold it. Alrighty. Moving down the line, we have Led Zeppelin, London, 1969. We have the songs. Interesting that it says copyright 1969, printed in the USA. And the record we have inside. Interesting. James Patrick and Company. Looks like a nice album. Led Zeppelin, For Your Love. Fillmore West, January 10th, 1969. Train kept a rollin'. It's always cool when they label these with the actual show. Although, this is a record I've never seen before or since. What does it look like inside? More of the Oz record label. And 2 new colors. Wait a minute, didn't the earlier ones we looked at had like a boxer at the bottom? What is this guy doing? Alright, there we go on that one. And things just get weirder. Sometimes they get more interesting, sometimes they just get more weird. Live in Seattle, March 75. More of the same similar label as before in 2 new colors. I have no idea what 207.19 would indicate. Live in Seattle 35 and Boston September 1970. Well, that's a big difference. They go from 1975 to 1970. What is that? The other half of that show? Instead of giving us a instead of giving us a 3 record set, like the random other one, we get a two record sets. And here we have the best of Led Zeppelin Live, Volume 2, Volume 1. These are at least printed independently. These are not stickers. These are actually printed with the Volume 1 and Volume 2. The Wizard's Quest. Side 1, Continuing Saga Records. Made in the USA. Broadcasting and copying prohibited. Side 2, The Wizard's Quest. The same, but in blue. Let's see what we get over here. Do we get side 3 and 4, or do we get other side 1 and 2 in different colors? We got a purple side 2. And a green. Side 1 and side 2. Alright, interesting 4-record set. And as we go, these are some actual editions that I just threw in the end here because I thought they were interesting. So this is apparently a copy of Led Zeppelin 4 as it was sold in Taiwan, I believe. Is that an interesting copy of Led Zeppelin 4? Pretty cool. And I think that's just simply an import. Nothing particularly special about the record, other than the label and the packaging. And to continue, just to show my little excessive discretionary income in my youth, who would buy extra copies of the records they loved and never opened them? And here we have Into the Outdoor, never opened. Still in its factory packaging. I mean, it's inside this protective case sleeve, but the record's unopened. I have no idea which one of the 6 album covers that is, and not to mention the virgin white sleeve that you can rub a sponge over it and turn the colors. Maybe someday it'll be interesting for someone to open that as though they were opening it for the first time in 1978. And of course, same story. An unopened original Zeppelin first album. Nothing particularly special about it, other than the fact it's never been opened. Interesting, here is an original master series recording. Original master recording of Zeppelin 2. I haven't seen another one of these. But back in the day, these were somewhat popular for audiophile aficionados because the highest level of quality you could get from a record was one of these original master recordings. They are recorded at half speed to capture every nuance of the music. They got 100% virgin vinyl. They have museum quality, paper sleeves for the records. They were expensive. And before CDs came out, this was a record that sounded like a CD. Just exquisite quality for a high price if you wanted the best sounding record you could get. And of course, once CDs came out, these became quite obsolete. But that's neat to have one of Zeppelin 2. So, back to all this. All right, and I invite any discussion or forum because I'm not just a teacher here. I'm trying to learn as much as anybody. And every time I've ever Googled or searched online for any reference or anything relative to one of these, I find nothing. So maybe here, if I post this, somebody will say, hey, I've seen a copy of that, or something. So it's not quite so unique. It can't be. And thank you very much for watching, and y'all have a great day.